The slap landed on Tessie's face as she stepped down from her car to get something. It was fast. Unexpectedly. Loud. A homeless man, the same man who fed from the dustbin every evening on that street corner, had slapped her. Tessie's cheek turned red instantly. She stood there, frozen, not out of pain, but shock. The bodyguards ran toward her, people screamed, and the street fell silent in disbelief. But what no one knew yet was that the truth about Tessie's wealth would soon shake everyone to the core. Welcome. This is True Soul Stories. Tessie was no ordinary woman. She was a billionaire mom, mother of 2 playful boys and a newborn baby girl. Her home? A mansion that stretched wide enough to hold a small village. Her husband? A powerful business tycoon, the kind whose name opened doors in high places. They were the picture of success, luxury, and admiration. But on this day, something different happened. Tessie had just returned from work, tired but smiling. She pulled over by the roadside shop to buy some snacks for her kids, a habit she loved, a little surprise for when they hugged her at the door. As she stepped down, adjusting her sunglasses and reaching for her purse. Slap. A rough hand met her soft cheek. She turned, and there he was. The same homeless man she'd seen digging through bins. Dirty, thin, and trembling. The world around her stopped. Why did he do it? Who was he? And what Tessie did next shocked everyone. Tessie held her face, stunned, not just from the slap, but from the look in the man's eyes. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't running. He just stood there, breathing heavily, staring at her like he knew her. Her bodyguards reached him in seconds. "Ma, should we handle him?" Tessie raised her hand, not to strike, but to stop them. "Wait." She took a closer look at the man. Beneath the tangled hair, the beard, the layers of dirt, something familiar flickered. His eyes. There was pain in them. But not the kind that comes from hunger or cold. It was the kind that comes from memories. Still, she couldn't place it, or maybe, her mind refused to go there. He lowered his head. I thought you were someone else," he muttered, backing away. Tessie didn't say a word. She stepped back into the car, face still burning, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't explain. That night, Tessie sat by her bedroom window, holding her daughter close. The slap was still fresh in her memory. But more than the slap, it was the eyes. She opened an old drawer. One she hadn't touched in 7 years. There lay an envelope. Yellowed. Torn. Unread. It was the last letter from a man named Derek, her ex-husband. A man who vanished from her life when she had nothing. A man she had once loved deeply, before wealth, before fame. As her fingers trembled over the envelope, her mind raced. Could it be? Tessie sat alone in the quiet of her room, the city lights blinking outside her window like silent witnesses. She hadn't spoken to anyone about Derek in years, not even her husband. The world only knew the billionaire Tessie, not the broken woman she once was. But now, after that slap, it was as if the past had found her. She opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Inside, there were only 4 words. "I never deserved you." A tear slipped down her cheek. Flashback, 7 years ago. Before the mansion. Before the bodyguards. Before the private jets and magazine covers. There was a 1-bedroom apartment and a dream. Tessie had worked day and night building her small business. Selling thrift clothes online, flipping cheap items into treasures. She was fueled by purpose, and by love. Derek, her husband at the time, was her whole world. Or so she thought. She gave him everything, her heart, her trust, and access to every dime she earned. But one morning, she woke up to an empty wardrobe, and an even emptier bank account. Derek was gone. No note. No explanation. He had stolen every penny she had saved. Tessie spiraled. Broke. Alone. Betrayed. Depression wrapped around her like a cold blanket. She didn't eat for days. She barely spoke. At her lowest, she sat under a leaking roof, staring at a photo of them together, whispering. Why? Everyone told her to give up. But something inside her, a quiet fire, refused to die. She started again. From zero. Selling old clothes on the street. Taking small business loans. Knocking on doors that slammed in her face. And then, one door opened. And then another. And another. Until Tessie didn't just rise, she soared. From a single rack on the roadside to the owner of a multimillion-dollar fashion empire. She met a good man, her current husband, and rebuilt a life so beautiful, no one would have guessed how broken she once was. Until now. Back to the present. Staring out the window, Tessie whispered to herself. After all these years, that homeless man was him. Derek. The man who stole her money and shattered her heart. Now he was the one with nothing. The next morning, Tessie stood by her car, dressed in something she hadn't worn in years, a simple hoodie and jeans. No designer bags. No bodyguards. No heels. She didn't want to draw attention. Not today. She had only one goal, to be sure. She returned to the same place where the slap had happened. The same street where the man disappeared after whispering, "I thought you were someone else." For hours, she waited in her car, watching. People passed. Vendors shouted. But he didn't show. Until. Just as the sun began to sink behind the rooftops, she saw him, digging through a bin behind an abandoned building. He moved slowly, like a man carrying the weight of many winters. Tessie's heart clenched. She got out of the car and walked toward him, unnoticed. Closer. Closer. And then, he turned. Their eyes met. For a moment, he looked ready to run. But then, Tessie spoke, gently. Derek? He froze. The way his shoulders tensed. The way his lip trembled, just slightly. That was all the answer she needed. It's really you. Derek looked down, ashamed, as if the ground itself could swallow him. You shouldn't be here, he said. Tessie stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. Why did you do it? He didn't answer. So she tried again. Why did you slap me? He finally looked up, tears clinging to his dirty lashes. I didn't know it was you. I thought you were someone else. Someone who used to mock me. I was hungry. Angry. Lost. She studied him, not with hate, but with quiet disbelief. This was the man she once cried herself to sleep over. The man she begged God to bring back. And here he was, broken. But not just by poverty, by regret. Tessie looked at Derek, the man who once held her heart, and crushed it. He was no longer the man from her memories. This wasn't the charming smile, the smooth words, the partner she once believed in. This was a shell of him, worn down by guilt, time, and the weight of his own choices. She didn't need answers anymore. She didn't need closure. Because in that moment, watching him shake beneath layers of torn clothing and shame, she knew, she had already won. Not with money. Not with marriage. But by healing. By surviving. By becoming more than what he left behind. She took a step back, eyes calm, voice steady. You didn't just steal my money, Derek. You stole my hope. My peace. You left me to drown. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. She took one last look at him, not with hatred, but with finality. But I rose. Without you. Then, without another word, Tessie turned and walked away. Each step echoed strength. No tears. No turning back. Derek stood there, shaking. And then. He fell to his knees. In the cold silence of that empty alley, the man who once left a woman broken now weep like a child. Tears soaked his dirt-stained hands. He cried, not just for what he had done, but for what he had lost. Forever. They say time heals all wounds, but in Tessie's case, time didn't just heal, it rebuilt. She never spoke of that day to anyone. She went home, hugged her children, and kissed her husband. Her past had returned, not to destroy her, but to remind her of how far she had come. When someone breaks you, let your success be the echo of your silence. The next morning, the city moved as usual, horns blaring, buses speeding past, vendors shouting. But inside Tessie's car, there was a quiet storm. She hadn't planned to pass that street. But something, maybe instinct, maybe mercy led her there. And there he was. Derek. Curled beside the dumpster like a forgotten shadow, his clothes torn, his skin pale, lips dry. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. Tessie slowed her car. Her driver turned to ask a question, but stopped when he saw the look in her eyes. She opened the door and stepped out. Click. Her heels touched the pavement. She walked slowly toward him and whispered, "Derek." He stirred, startled, his eyes squinting against the sun. When he saw her, standing there in elegance, her presence almost surreal, he rose up in shock. Shame swept over his face like a tidal wave. He opened his mouth, but Tessie held up her hand. She reached into her bag and pulled out a brown envelope, sealed neatly. She placed it in his trembling hand, along with a folded note. "Read this. And be there." Her voice was calm. Not angry. Not forgiving. Just certain. Then she turned, walked back to her car, and drove away, leaving the dust, the noise, and Derek, standing frozen on the sidewalk. Inside the note. Later, under a shade, with shaking fingers, Derek unfolded the small paper. His eyes scanned the handwriting he hadn't seen in 7 years. It read, "When you get to this address, wait there. Someone will pick you up. But make sure you are there at exactly 12 p.m. No name. No second page. Just a time and an address." He checked the clock tower downtown, 10:17 a.m. He had less than 2 hours. He clutched the note and the envelope tight against his chest. "Why is she doing this?" he whispered. But deep down, he already knew. Exactly 12 p.m. The sun stood tall in the sky, casting soft shadows on the pavement. Derek stood outside the quiet address, holding the envelope and note tightly, his stomach turning. He expected a soup kitchen, maybe a rehab center, or even nothing. He never imagined what would come next. Just as the church bell down the street rang 12, a black car pulled up. A woman stepped out, Tessie's maid, dressed simply, holding a bag. "Are you Mr. Derek?" He nodded slowly, confused. She handed him the bag. "Please put these on." Inside were clean clothes, neatly folded, a fresh white shirt, new jeans, polished shoes, and under them, a bottle of cologne. Before he could speak, a man exited the car. "I'm your driver. Miss Tessie said you should be dropped off at your new apartment." "My, what?" Derek whispered. But the man was already opening the door. Still in disbelief, Derek climbed in. The apartment. When they arrived, Derek stepped into a space he never dreamed he'd see again, a clean, fully furnished apartment, with warm lights, a kitchen stocked with food, a soft bed, and new towels on the rack. He walked slowly through the rooms, as if touching a dream. Then he went into the bathroom. He stared at his reflection in the mirror. For the first time in nearly a decade, he looked at himself. And he cried. He bathed for hours, washing away not just dirt, but memories. Shame. Regret. Afterward, the driver took him to a barbershop. The barber didn't ask questions. I just smiled and got to work. With every strand of tangled hair that fell to the floor, it was like a layer of his old life was being peeled away. The next morning, the reunion. At 9 a.m., there was a knock at the door. Derek opened it. And there stood Tessie. Beside her, tall, calm, and firm, was her husband, the billionaire everyone respected. Derek's knees buckled. He dropped to the floor. Hands shaking, he bowed his head and choked out words. "I'm sorry. I was greedy. I was blind. I took what wasn't mine and destroyed the only person who ever loved me." Silence. Tessie stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but clear. "You hurt me more than I ever thought I could be hurt. But I didn't let it destroy me. I healed. I grew. And now, I forgive you." Derek wept openly, face to the ground. Then her husband stepped forward. "We believe in second chances. Not everyone gets one, Derek, but you have one now." He handed him a card, clean, embossed. Junior Logistics Manager, probation start date, Monday. Derek looked up in disbelief. "You're giving me a job?" The man nodded. "Earn it. Not for us, but for yourself." Stage 10, the moral, forgiveness has power. As the couple left the apartment, Tessie looked back one last time. She didn't see the man who slapped her. She didn't see the man who stole her money. She saw a broken man being rebuilt, one day at a time. And she walked away, hand in hand with her husband, not as a victim of her past, but as a victor of her healing. Forgiveness doesn't come easy, but when it's real, it sets two people free. This has been another true soul story, where pain meets purpose, and healing finds a voice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that touch the soul.